Welcome, everyone. My name is Frida Nixdorf, and I represent the Work That Reconnects network. Thank you for joining us for the webinars and Conversation Cafe series, where we are offering a wide range of rich and educational and supportive opportunities for our global community of Work That Reconnects facilitators, members, friends of the network. Our intention here is to strengthen the web of the Work That Reconnects community while continuing reaching beyond our current edges to weave deeper connections with others who are contributing to the great turning in diverse and complementary ways. So today we are joining with Jo delAmor for Parenting in Tumultuous Times.
Thank you, Frida. And thank you, everybody who's here today. I just want to invite you to settle in and get comfortable and just be present. Every one of you is welcome here at the level and kind of place that you're coming from, whether you have little teeny children or big, huge young adult or even grown adult children, or you have grandchildren. I know that we're all coming from different places and from different parts of the path of tending to and caring for the next generation. So I just want to invite you to settle in and get here. We're going to take a moment right now to ground and arrive fully together. So I ask you to take a breath. Feel yourself where you are in this moment, bringing everything that you need to bring with your awareness, your attention, your groundedness in your body to this moment. I ask you to feel and honor the land beneath you, the land that you're living on, that you're breathing with, that nourishes you. Just kind of like feel into the space around you, the trees, the stones, the soil, the animals, birds, the beings that you know that are part of your place on the planet. Each of us coming from and living with such special, beautiful expressions of the earth. And then since we're meeting here via Zoom and we're all over the place in various different locations, I want to acknowledge the fact that it can sometimes feel like it's not a location or that it's some kind of floating, undefinable location. But we're still here connected with the earth through our breath in this big web of life. And this technology, this ability to meet here by Zoom, is supported by all sorts of resources and little miracles of technology, and also the real work, labor, and resources of real people and places all over the planet. So as we're settling in here and we're honoring the land beneath our own feet, we want to also honor the land beneath the servers that support us here, the millions of acres of colonized, unceded land that these servers sit on. We want to honor the minerals that are mined from the earth to make the devices that we're using, and the people, many of whom are actually children, who are working in the mines in places like the Democratic Republic of the Congo to bring this technology here. And so it's both with appreciation and grief that we honor the ability to meet in this way. And I want to credit Sarah Nahar, who is a Black American activist, a scholar, and a Work That Reconnects facilitator, who has helped me understand and bring that kind of a acknowledgement into these virtual meetings, so we don't skip over and pretend that we're just magically here. We're here for all sorts of reasons. We're also here in the long continuum of life. So as we're centering and grounding ourselves, we're not just grounding ourselves in place, but also in time. So I invite you to kind of breathe into and feel all of those ancestors that came before you, that made it possible for you to be here in this moment. All of the ancestors whose DNA, whose experience, whose pain and joy actually resides in your cells, in your bones, in your blood. If there's any particular ancestors that you want to call in for yourself, I invite you to do that at this moment. Inviting that long lineage of life that comes before you. And then let's bring our attention to all of the beings, humans and non-humans, who exist right now in this period of time, who are living right now in 2020, who are working, breathing, struggling, triumphing, having these experiences now at this period of time. I invite you to think about those who you want to have in your heart during this time. Your children, yourself, your peers, your co-parents, the people who you actively work with, and the people who you know about who are working the edge of the great turning right now all around the world, whether you know them in person or not. And right now, silently to yourself, you can call in those people and those beyond people, those beings who are sharing this time on the planet with us. And then, because it doesn't end there, let's breathe in and think about all that comes after us, all that could come from this moment. Our children, grown, living, their children, the future generations of our species and other species living on this planet in a time beyond our own, those ones yet to be. We don't have names for them. We can't see their faces. We don't know what it's going to be like, but we can feel their calling. It's what inspires us to do this work. So please, in this moment, I invite you to bring those beings into your heart. Invite them to be present here. Acknowledging that we, right now in this moment, especially as parents and grandparents, are the link between all that's come before us and all that could possibly come after. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being one of the parents or grandparents who is willing, able, and present to do this work in this moment at this time. I'm Jo delAmor. I'm a mom, which I apparently neglected to put in my bio on the advertisement for this program, which I think is kind of funny because those of you who are here know that sometimes we overlook the most essential things of like, oh yeah, and I'm a mom. So my daughter is 18 years old. She just finished her first term at university. My stepson is 19 years old. They both graduated high school this year in 2020 when things just got as crazy as they could get right before high school graduation. And I've been walking the path of caring for children for over 20 years, since before I was a mother myself. And I've cared for hundreds of other people's children in addition to my two, in all sorts of settings, in co-parenting, intimate community relationships, in preschools and nursery schools, in-home nannying, long-term temp, I have just been all over the place taking care of children, wilderness camp, you name it. So, and so for these 20 years, I have been paying really close attention to these little ones, what they need, what works for them, what their dynamics are like with the adults in their lives. And all this time also really feeling this, the tumultuousness and the transformational moment that we're in. Noticing how that affects them and noticing what they need from us in this time. My personal and professional and spiritual dedication is to personal and cultural transformation as a catalyst for planetary healing. So for almost 10 years, when my daughter was young and I was a single mom, I applied that dedication to professionally as a personal transformation coach. And most of my clients at that time were moms. So in addition to working with children, I've also worked with parents quite a lot, helping them improve their self-care, working on family dynamics and relationships, and really improving their holistic parenting. And then since 2013, I've been working with and facilitating the Work That Reconnects and incorporating that more and more into my work as a way to move beyond the personal and into the cultural transformation. So this is kind of where this comes from. It's the intersection of all of those things. And it's bringing the Work That Reconnects to parents so that we really can learn how to meet the moment with our children and help them learn how to meet the moment. So today we're going to go through the full spiral of the Work That Reconnects. Some of you are very familiar with the Work That Reconnects, and some of you, it might be a brand new thing for you. So I'll just let you know that it is powerful group work that was developed over decades by Joanna Macy and her colleagues in workshop spaces all around the world. And it evolved and grew out of a need to face and work with our despair and our challenge as we face some of these big changes that are happening on the planet. The first original kind of pieces of this work came out of the anti-nuclear movement and helping activists kind of become empowered and move past their terror and their despair and into empowered action. And it's since been applied all over the world for people meeting this moment, meeting this transformation. The work moves in a spiral. So we're going to go through the spiral today. We're going to start with gratitude. Then we're going to move into honoring our pain for the world. And then we're going to move into seeing with new eyes. And before we finish, we'll move into growing forth. And these phases of the spiral, I've been working them into my work for parents and into the development of the book that I'm writing, which is called Raising Children in the Midst of Global Crisis. And so today you're going to see some of my kind of interpretations of those parts of the spiral and how they apply to us as parents. So I know that you all are here because you realize that parenting in these times can be really hard. We're often and repeatedly torn between this intense love that we have for our children and our intense fear. We want to go all in and really, really be there for our kids and let them have fun and have a joyful house, a joyful experience. We want to pour ourselves into their lives and their future and all of that natural flow of parenting. But in these times, we're often really haunted by our fear and our anxiety about the state of the world and the type of future that our children might be heading towards. It's crazy, it's scary, it's confusing and difficult. And this year has been particularly hard for many parents and kiddos around the world because of the pandemic. A lot of changes have happened in our lives. Some of them have carried some blessings, and some of them have carried some real hardships. But the compounded crises that we face together have been brewing and exacerbating for a long time, way before the coronavirus. And this struggle of raising children in the midst of crisis is not new. It's pressing. It's a challenge that we all share. And it's also an opportunity that's being presented to each one of us. So this is why we're here today. It's the motivation that I have for bringing the work that reconnects to parents in order to help us meet all of these opportunities and challenges in this powerfully pivotal time. And it's the inspiration that has guided me to write my first book, like I mentioned, Raising Children in the Midst of Global Crisis. In the work that reconnects, we talk about the Great Turning. It's this massive shift of consciousness and human behavior that could possibly turn human society from being based on industrial growth to being based on sustaining life. And my view on this is that this shift begins with the way that we raise our children. This is an internal shift. This is a deep shift. It's a shift in the way that we see the world. And the way that we see the world starts forming the minute that we're born. So our role as parents is huge in how our children come into the world. This is the necessary shift that we're being called to. It's that reconciliation between our love for our children and our fear for the future. And it's that most important activism that we can pour ourselves into at this time for our ailing world. So all of these crises that we're facing, I believe, are a direct result of the way that we think about the world and the way that we interact with the world, our collective worldview or paradigm. And as I said, we pick that paradigm up from the moment we're born. Every little nuance about the environment that we're in and the information and energies that we're exposed to forms that worldview. As parents, we have the ability to be active agents in the way that our children's paradigm is formed, and to help shift the collective worldview towards one that can sustain life. And so I call this work New Paradigm Parenting. It's what the book is all about. It's what we're going to be getting into today. And it's what my work with parents is all about. The book is full of practical guidance and work that reconnects style practices that can be done on your own or in a group of other parents. And working through these parent practices with other parents in that style, like we're going to do today, I find is very powerful and really magical in what it wakes up in us and the energy that it brings to us. So in our single session today, we're just going to scratch the surface on all of that. We're going to kind of sample it and feel into it a little bit, but there's so much more to dive into. So there's so many ways that we can learn from each other and stretch ourselves to support our practice of new paradigm parenting. I've got a group of parents forming for a 12-week program starting in January that I'm really excited about, because that's going to give us an opportunity to go more deeply and really deep in these practices and learn together how to stretch ourselves into supporting our children in the best way that we can. And I think Frida's going to put a link to that in the chat. So for now, that's the kind of overview of what we're doing. And now we can start to dive in here. We had sent out some simple group guidelines in the email that came to you before this program. And I just want to go over them quickly before we move in, so that we all are set with the way that we're going to interact. I want to invite you to be here as comfortably and fluidly as you need, to take care of yourself, to let us know if you have any accessibility needs that need to be tended to or that we can be considerate of. For example, if I'm talking too fast, or if you can't hear something, or if you need some clarification or some support in any way, please let us know. You can privately chat to Frida or chat to the whole group if necessary. I believe Frida put the guidelines in the chat. So everybody can look over there. We invite you to come to this space with openness and curiosity. We invite you to practice active listening and presence. So this is a great time to minimize distractions and to just really be here for this time. We invite you to respect each person's unique experience. This is really tender work for all of us. Every single one of us is touched deeply and moved deeply by our relationship with our children. And we each have our own way that we come to it. And it's legitimate, each and every one of ours. So just listen and allow for each person to have their own unique perspective. And we ask you to hold each other in confidence, meaning that if you're going to share anything that's happened here today, you can share the story or the general, but don't share the people, the names of the people in any kind of way that would compromise anybody. So stories leave, names stay is the way to say that. We ask you to come willing to participate at the level that you're comfortable with. So you're going to go into breakout rooms. That's a great time to really show up and share fully if you're able and if you can. If you need to pass at any point in time, or you just need to step out and not enter a breakout room, that's okay too. But if you can, I invite you to lean into it, because that's where the real juice happens. Also, step up, step back. That's just an agreement to allow for a balanced amount of sharing and participation. So if you're somebody who's always jumping in with the answer or the idea, and you tend to talk a lot, then this is a great opportunity to listen more. And if you're a person who tends to hold back and be shy about sharing, this is a great time to lean in. We're here to listen to each other. So let's be mindful, especially when you go into breakout rooms, be mindful, make sure that everybody in there gets the opportunity to share. And then please practice self-care. So tend to your needs, reach out for support if needed. And a reminder around all of that is that you inhabit a real, actual human body on real, actual earth, and you do not live in this little box on your computer. So sometimes when we're doing all the Zooming, which I know has increased insanely in the last several months, we wind up trying to squeeze ourselves in here, trying to push ourselves all into this little box. So I invite you to just check in with your body, breathe, move your eyes away from the screen when you need to. Just remember to stay grounded in yourself and don't try to force yourself into this little device. So I think that is it for our guidelines. We're going to start out with gratitude and with sharing our gratitudes with each other by going into breakout rooms. And there are going to be 2 people per breakout room. I want to check in with Frida here for a moment. Do you see that there's several folks who have 2 per screen?
I do.
Okay, so go ahead and keep the 2 per screen as just one screen in a breakout room so that they can share with each other. If you can do that. And I'll give you, do you need a little extra moment?
Yeah, give me just a minute to,
okay.
I know.
Yep. So, okay, so when we go into breakout rooms, we're going to use a practice called open sentences, which is a time-tested, classic Work That Reconnects practice. But I've created some new open sentences for parents to use in this new paradigm parenting model. So what you're going to do is when you go into the breakout room, you'll speak out loud the beginning of the first sentence, and it's like a sentence with a ... Frida will post them in a moment when she gets a chance. And then you just keep speaking, and you're timed. So I think we're going to have, 2 minutes per person per sentence. So the first person says, oh, here they are in the chat. Okay, so the first person says, the best little moments of parenting I've experienced in the last week or month have been, and then just keep on sharing and tell about the best little moments that you've had in your parenting or grandparenting experience in the recent past, until the 2 minutes comes up, and then you'll get a notification from Frida that says time for the second person to how do we do that? Each person's with 2 minutes. Okay, so first person sentence 1, second person sentence 1, and then you'll get first person sentence 2, second person sentence 2. And this is just an opportunity to really let your thoughts flow. The reason why we do open sentences instead of questions is because sometimes we subconsciously think that questions have a right answer, and there's no right answer. So if you're just finishing a sentence, it's just whatever you think, whatever you feel. And this is a place to practice active listening. So the person who's listening, you just listen. You don't need to validate, you don't need to affirm, you don't need to interject at all. For 2 minutes, you're just really receiving and actively listening what the person is saying. If the person who's speaking stops, pauses, that's okay. Silence is absolutely fine. Sometimes in that space of silence, a new thought emerges, and sometimes not, and that's okay. So allow for each person to have a full 2 minutes to be held, listened to, and received. Welcome back from your breakout room. I'm so curious to hear from a couple of folks. We have time maybe only to hear from like 2 or 3 people verbally, but other people can share in the chat. So I'm curious, what is awesome about your children? You know, how do they motivate and inspire you? And what have some of these special little moments been for you? So if one person wants to share, you can just go ahead and unmute yourself and share a little bit. Other people can share in the chat any little tidbits from their gratitude for their children.
This is Stephanie. I'll just add, I so appreciated those prompts. I've done the gratitude prompts a lot of times in Work That Reconnects spaces, but the parenting ones are really sweet. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. That's great. Can you share something that you shared in your...
Sure. Yeah, it's funny. I was putting my toddler down for a nap as we started, and then got her down for a nap as as our short time went on. But yeah, she's 2.5, and she is just in a really fascinating stage of life right now, and says super sweet things like, "I love being with you, Mama," and yeah, and loves to sing, and so, and you know, it's also exhausting at times, but the super sweetness makes the exhaustion, you know, bearable and worth it.
Yeah, it's almost as though it was designed that way, huh?
Totally. Definitely.
Cool. Oh, great. Would somebody else like to share a little tidbit from your time together? Something.
My name's Ariel. I'm happy to share briefly. I have a 4-year-old son, 5 next month, and I'm just so inspired by the way that he so effortlessly seems to be in his joy every day, even in these times. And when that feels like something that is so heavy and challenging for me to access, just witnessing him gives me that sort of hope and that energy to... It makes it easier for me to access the joy when I see him so freely embodying it, and I'm inspired by his resiliency and his presence.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. I'd love to hear from one more person before we move on.
I have My name's Linda, and I have a 14-year-old son. And like many kids his age, he spends a lot of time on the computers and inside. And one of my things is to try to get him outside. And I don't think he had been out for days. And I was like, let's just take a little mile loop in our neighborhood in Portland, Oregon. And we went out, and I loved the conversation about the senses and like what senses were different being next to a screen versus outside. And we went through all the 5 senses and just discussed which were overstimulated and which were understimulated on the indoor versus the outdoor. And it was just really fascinating to hear a teenager and his reflections on that. So it was a beautiful moment for me.
Wow. Awesome. Oh, thanks for sharing that. Oh, so there's so much to be grateful for in our children and in the experience of parenting. And so I use the phrase grounding in gratitude when we are in this phase of the spiral with new paradigm parenting, because it reminds us that it's actually the ground that we can stand on and the thing that we can come back to again and again to source our strength, our resilience, and our creativity while we're raising kids. As parents and as grandparents, we've all been blessed. So I want to say that's the thing that we have in common here, that we've all received an outrageous blessing. And it's the blessing of resilient life, that life keeps happening, it keeps coming through. And it's the blessing of newness and the blessing of possibility. It's this miraculous gift that each of us has to get to care for and learn from the young ones in our lives as they grow, and to be actively engaged with the development of this next generation of human beings. And when our attention strays too far from that blessing, it's really easy to get wrapped up in the worry and the anxiety and the overwhelm. So I invite you to really make a practice of coming back to that blessing, coming back to that ground as often as you possibly can, to just really direct your attention and your awareness towards the blessing and stay close to the joy and the gift of parenting, because that's where the energy and the motivation and the stamina to keep up with the needs of parenting and to keep up with giving our children the kind of groundedness and love that flows through us that they really need. So it's not to say that things aren't hard, and it's not to say that things are so blessed and wonderful that, it's not one or the other, but it's like the grounding in that blessing and the bringing our attention to that blessing and letting it come through us actually helps us deal with the challenge and the hard times, helps us kind of make it through and past our own worry. And when we stay close to that blessing, we stay close to our kids, we can lean into that relationship and learn from them. And like Linda was saying, it's like, I love that, especially as a 14-year-old, that you can have a moment, even if it's just one moment of the week, but you have a moment where you're like, hey, I want to hear from you. I want to have a real experience from you, and to hear the wisdom that came through and the, his own insights that came through at that time. That can really move us forward and help us know what they need and know how to meet them. So from that grounded place of gratitude, we have the strength and the energy to deal with the challenges. So as we move from gratitude into this part of the spiral that is typically called honoring our pain for the world, I want to bring our attention to emotional fluency. So as I'm working with parents and I'm writing for parents, it's not just allowing ourselves to feel the pain, but it's getting good at working with and navigating and understanding our emotions and helping our children understand theirs. So this part here in emotional fluency is where we can tap into and make space for all those emotions that we're feeling. and understand them in a way that transcends our personal experience and reveals our deeper connection with the wider world. There are so many big emotions in our lives right now. I know you're having them, your kids are having them, they're being hurled at us from all around in the media and everywhere in our communities and in society at large. And yet, typically in our conventional society, we're not really given the skills to navigate emotion. The typical message that we get is to ignore our emotions, to stuff them down, maybe to project them onto others, to power through and think positive, just to kind of skip past the emotions. So this is a place where we can pause and start working with getting good at being with our emotions. Because it doesn't always work out well to skip past them. And in this terrain that we have of increasingly intense emotions, we have to get better at dealing with them. We have to become emotionally fluent. So this practice of emotional fluency is an essential part of new paradigm parenting. It has to do with welcoming our emotions in and learning to understand the messages that they're bringing, and then modeling that for our children so that they can learn how to do that for themselves. Their lives are going to have all sorts of challenges. And so the more fluent they are with receiving the messages of the emotions, the more able they'll be to meet their moments. And this is an ongoing learning process that really requires us to lean in and be willing to learn and stretch. I find that doing this work intentionally with other parents in our lives is really important in that process. They say it takes a village to raise a child. And I'd say in these times, it takes a village of emotionally fluent people to raise a child well. Your children need adults in their lives who know how to deal with their emotions. So we're going to spend some time in this part of the spiral tuning into our emotions and exploring the ways that we tend to respond to them now. We're going to have a short meditation together, and then we're going to go into breakout rooms to share what emotions were stirred up for us by that meditation, and we'll let you know what the prompts are for that time, and they'll be posted in the chat. But for now, I want you to just settle in right here for the meditation. Let yourself do whatever you need to do physically to get comfortable to be in that space. And then when we come out of the meditation, we'll transition into breakout rooms so that you can process a bit with the other people in your group. In this meditation, we're going to tap into the multiple layers of our reality, which are really the multiple layers of our interconnected self, our interbeingness, the fullness of our self that is actually deeply positioned in relationship with all of the other beings. So I invite you to take a moment to center yourself in your body and connect with your breath. Let the normal activity and attention of your mind start to settle as you tune into your body and feel your breath moving in and out of your lungs. Breathing in and out. We're going to travel in ever-increasing concentric circles from the center of ourselves out into the multiple layers of our interconnected self. Begin by following your breath to the very center of your heart. And sensing your own personal state of physical, mental, and emotional wellness. Notice how your body is doing, where there's tension and where there's ease, if there's pain. Notice the activity of your mind. Is it calm or racing? Notice the current state of your emotions and your internal feelings, the level of tenderness level of openness. Pause here and take a deep, nourishing breath for this small self, for this individual human self. Next, follow your breath outward to tune into your household, your family, feeling into the state of mental, emotional, and physical wellness of the individuals in your household, their relationships to each other, their sense of purpose and passion in their lives, the status of your home space and what it takes to maintain it. Tune into how that feels for you. Then follow your breath out to tune into the state of your neighborhood, your community, your local ecosystem, your town or city. Tune into how the human beings are doing there. Which human beings are thriving and which ones are suffering in your local area? What's working and what's not working in the human community that surrounds you? Tune into the quality of life of the other than human relatives in your local area and the wellness of your local ecosystem. How are the plants, the soil, the animals and birds? How is the water and the air? Then as you breathe, follow your attention outward to the state of your country or a global region and eventually to the earth as a whole. What energies and emotions are at play on the national and international stage? How are the human beings doing? Both those ones close at hand and in the far reaches of the world. How are the other than human beings doing? How are the ecosystems faring? How are the habitats doing? How are the forests and all of the beings that rely on them doing? From California to Indonesia, from Brazil to Australia. How are the glaciers and the ice pack and all of the beings that depend on them doing? How are the aquifers and the rivers doing? How are the oceans doing around the world and all of the beings that live within them and depend on them for life? How is the air, the soil, the earth herself? While breathing from your heart center, feel into this current state of the world and the direction towards which it seems to be moving. I invite you to take a few nice, deep breaths here and allow yourself to really feel it through your entire being. Maintaining your energetic connection to these feelings and to this meditation, I invite you to bring your attention back to the screen to see the prompts in the chat and to get ready to move into your breakout room. Once you're in your breakout room, you can take turns sharing what emotions were stirred up for you as you turned into the state of the world, and then go back around the circle of the group to share about how those emotions show up for you or not in your daily life and what you tend to do with them. Do you tend to feel them fully? Do you find yourself coping or avoiding? How do you handle them? And what kind of effect do you feel that they have on you and on your kids? Welcome back. So I'd love to hear, like we did last time, just from a couple of people verbally, and then other people can put some things in the chat. What was something that came up for you, maybe something that was surprising or particularly interesting about your own emotions? Not necessarily about what somebody else in your group said, but your own sharing. If you'd like to share, you can just unmute yourself, or you can put it in the chat. Or you can share kind of how that experience was for you. If it landed for you, if it was meaningful or challenging.
I just wanted to share just real quickly that, hi everybody. For me, one of the most confusing things about this whole experience is to feel that I have such a precious toolkit to care for my difficult emotions. And sometimes it's just overwhelming that I can't really use them. And then I trespass all my energy to my family. And then that sometimes keeps me in a cycle of shame. Like, how dare I do that? I know how to deal with that, you know? Mm-hmm. So, but I appreciate how in my group, Kim reminded me to go back to self-compassion. And so I'm grateful for that reminder.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sure you're not alone in this group here. It's one thing to know about something. It's a very different thing to live it. And it's so challenging to be in this moment right now as parents. Would somebody else like to share?
Well, I can share something. I realized during the meditation that the biggest emotion I have is sadness, and it usually comes up in my life as anger. So I want to keep that with me. My anger might be actually a big sadness.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to come back in my life with that, knowing that.
Mm. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that's a great example of the messages, right? So you can have the emotion, and if it just runs to you, you don't necessarily receive what it's trying to tell you. But the emotions are feedback from our greater body, from our greater world. And so if we can pause enough to sit with them and to feel into them and to let them tell us what they need to say, we could see, oh, there's maybe layers under there, and there's maybe some things to tend to and to take care of. So thank you, Marian, for that sharing. So we're going to take a brief break. It'll be just about 5 minutes, and then we're going to come back and move into Seeing with New Eyes. And I'm going to play some music for you during the break, so enjoy.
There's a movement underground, and now my seeds are sprouting. They're pushing up, pushing out, 'cause there is no more doubting. Movement in the air, there's a movement in my soul, and a message in the music that can unify the whole. I am seeking truth, taking root, tapping our toes as we find the groove. We are seeking truth, taking root, tapping our toes as we find the groove. Can you feel it in the heart? Can you feel it in the heart? We'll open up and let it in now. We can begin to feel it in the heart. We'll open up and let it in now. We can begin to feel it in the heart. 'Cause this life is a gift that we've been given. We better be sure this life we're living is paving a way to a better day, for our children to grow and for our children to play. In clean water, soil and air, we need to protect protected and we need to care, or else it'll be gone. And so will we, with no TVs and no SUVs, and there's no tomorrow, there's no yesterday, only today, only today. There's no tomorrow, there's no yesterday, only today, only today. Can you feel it in the heart? And can you feel it in the heart? We'll open up and let it in now. We can begin to feel it in the heart. We'll open up and let it in now. We can begin to feel it in the heart. And this land and our own two hands can give us more than a corporate plan. With the purest seeds we get what we need, delicious food for our family. This life is a gift that we've been given. We better be sure this life will live on this, paving a way to a better day for our children to grow and for our children to play. And clean water, soil and air, we need to protect it and we need to care, or else it'll be gone. And so will we, with no TVs and no SUVs, and there's no tomorrow, there's no yesterday, only today, only today. There's no tomorrow, there's no yesterday, only today, it's only today. Can you feel it in the heart? And can you feel it in the heart? We'll open up and let it in now. We can begin to feel it in the heart. Cause it's alright here, underneath the fear, no need to conquer the world. Well, let's free all the boys and girls are being born right now. They're gonna show us how to use our own two hands, and this land, our own two hands, and this land, our own two hands, and this land. Can you feel it in the heart? And can you feel it in the heart? We'll open up and let it in now. We can begin to feel it in the heart. And this land and our own two hands can give us more than our government can, with no abuse and no overuse. What's best for the earth is what we'll choose. It's alright here, underneath the fear, no need to conquer the world. Well, let's free all the boys and girls are being born right now. They're gonna show us how to use our own two hands, and this land, our own two hands, and this land. Can you feel it in the heart? And can you feel it in the heart? We'll open up and let it in now. We can begin to feel it in the heart. We'll open up and let it in now. We can begin to feel it in the heart.
Okay. So as we move from this emotional fluency, honoring our pain for the world, into the seeing with new eyes, I want to share a poem with you. And this poem is written by Aurora Levins Morales. It's called Vahavta. And I had to look up the meaning of Vahavta. It's a Jewish prayer, or it's a reference to a Jewish prayer called the Shema that I was unfamiliar with, but it's a centerpiece of the morning and evening Jewish prayers. And this phrase Vahavta is the beginning of I think the second verse, and it means something like, and you shall love. And it's speaking about the inevitability of loving God or life. And it also says to teach this prayer diligently to your children. Speak to them when you sit down and when you walk, when you lie down and when you rise. Bind these words on your arm, on your head, inscribe them on your doorpost. So it's a reminder. I think the reference in the title of this poem is a reminder to really embody and live and breathe and commit ourselves to this prayer. So I'm going to screen share so that you can see it while I read it, because it's beautiful. And
Joe,
Here we go. Yeah.
just so you know, it's pronounced Veahafta.
Oh, thank you. Who's that? Is that
It's Jen.
Jen? Hi, Jen. Veahafta?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Okay, here we go. So, and this is Aurora Levins Morales. You can see at the top of the screen there. Say these words when you lie down and when you rise up, when you go out and when you return, in times of mourning and in times of joy. Inscribe them on your doorposts, embroider them on your garments, tattoo them on your shoulders, teach them to your children, your neighbors, your enemies. Recite them in your sleep. Here in the cruel shadow of empire, another world is possible. Thus spoke the prophet Roque Dalton. All together they have more death than we, but all together we have more life than they. There is more bloody death in their hands than we could ever wield, unless we lay down our souls to become them, and then we will lose everything. So instead, imagine winning. This is your sacred task. This is your power. Imagine every detail of winning, the exact smell of the summer streets in which no one has been shot, the muscles you have never unclenched from worry, gone soft as newborn skin, the sparkling taste of food when we know that no one on earth is hungry, that the beggars are fed, that the old man under the bridge and the woman wrapping herself in thin sheets in the back seat of a car and the children who suck on stones nest under a flock of roofs that keep multiplying their shelter. Lean with all your being towards that day when the poor of the world shake down a rain of good fortune out of the heavy clouds and justice rolls down like waters. Defend the world in which we win as if it were your child. It is your child. Defend it as if it was your lover. It is your lover. When you inhale and when you exhale, breathe the possibility of another world into the 37.2 trillion cells of your body until it shines with hope. Then imagine more. Imagine rape is unimaginable. Imagine war is a scarcely credible rumor. That the crimes of our age, the grotesque inhumanities of greed, the sheer and astounding shamelessness of it, the vast fortunes made by stealing lives, the horrible normalcy it came to have, is unimaginable to our heirs, the generation of the free. Don't waver. Don't let despair sink its sharp teeth into the throat with which you sing. Escalate your dreams. Make them burn so fiercely that you can follow them down any dark alleyway of history and not lose your way. Make them burn clear as a starry drinking gourd over the grim fog of exhaustion, and keep walking. Hold hands, share water, keep imagining, so that we and the children of our children's children may live. So this moment right now is here for us to lean into that possibility of another world for the sake of our children's lives, for the sake of their children's lives. And as we move into this third portion of the spiral that's typically called seeing with new eyes, we're talking about this massive paradigm shift that we're being called to and what that means for us as parents. Another way of saying paradigm is worldview. So as we enter into the radical paradigm shift, we're literally learning to see the world differently than we were taught. We're leaning into a new worldview for ourselves so that we can pass it down to our children. Sometimes this section is called seeing with new or ancient eyes, because the new that we're being called to is actually quite old. It's as old as the earth herself, and it's that strong. It's the oldest and longest enduring worldview held by people across history and all around the world. Actually, many indigenous cultures alive now still hold this paradigm. They still live within this paradigm. They still carry this worldview and pass it down to their children. The challenge here is that it has been largely and violently pushed into the margins by the dominant worldview that takes up so much space and is threatening our collective existence. So it's, for us as parents, it's a matter of what we're aligning with and what kind of path we're going to create underneath the feet of our children. This new old paradigm is one that aligns with and follows the lead of the natural world, the abundant earth, the self-healing, regenerative intelligence of living systems, the enduring resilience of life itself. One of my dear elders, Pat McCabe, who's of the Dene Nation, calls it the thriving life paradigm. It's this way of seeing the world and interacting with the world that promotes thriving wellness for all beings. And in the book, Braiding Sweetgrass, that many of you may have read, and if you haven't, I highly recommend, botanist and professor Robin Wall Kimmerer, who's of the Potawatomi Nation, describes beautifully how all thriving is mutual by necessity, that no one being or species or person is actually thriving when anyone else suffers. And that as we authentically move towards thriving, conditions improve for everybody. So if we want our kids to have a viable future, then our call is to learn how to cultivate this mutual thriving, learn how to align ourselves with it, and raise kids that are able and willing to care for the earth and their fellow humans and their fellow species. So, do you believe it's possible for all beings on earth to thrive? Do you believe it's possible for humans to contribute to that thriving? Do you believe there's a possibility for a thriving future for our kids and the future generations of all species? I know these are really challenging questions, and we all have a tendency to have a lot of mixed feelings, hopes, doubts, and fears about the future. And I know that the reconstruction of an entire paradigm and worldview to move into one that's deeply and truly aligned with interbeingness and mutuality isn't simple, quick, or easy. But I hear the earth calling us to find our way back into seeing and living in this way. And I see the brilliant beauty in each newborn baby and every little one that I've been blessed to care for as a reassurance that human beings are here to participate in that, and as a message of resilience and hope for the future. I really feel that as long as life is still living and the sun is still shining and flowers are still blooming and we still have children to care for, that we're being invited to live in this thriving life paradigm, to restore this thriving life paradigm for humans and for all of our non-human relatives here on planet Earth. So whether you fully believe it or not in this moment, I'm asking you to just imagine for a second that it's possible and to start thinking about what it would take for that to happen. I invite you to start sharing in the chat right now about the qualities that we would need to nurture in our kids in order to help them thrive and to empower them to cultivate mutual thriving in their lives. So we're not going to go into breakout sessions for this portion. We're going to stay here together, and I'm going to see what you have there. Presence. I see that. Care. Curiosity. Empathy. Cooperation rather than competition. Abundance rather than scarcity. Joy. Love. Awareness of the connection of all life. ancestral skills, gratefulness, resiliency, hope, nonviolent communication. So there's some hard skills and some soft skills here. There's some kind of qualities, and then there's some actual, like, they need to learn some techniques, some skills, accountability, appreciation of community, soul tending, laughter, yes, song, inner quiet, connection to ancestry and lineage, goats, cooperation for sure, trust, love, magic, listening, slowing down. We got a second for goats. Intimacy, friendship, and the realities of systemic oppression. Dismantling whiteness. Yes. So this is where, like, this is really where, what's a better phrase for this? This is where the rubber hits the road. I wish I had a different phrase for that. This is where the work happens, right? Between what is going on in this world and what could possibly go on in this world, and us as parents in that pivotal place, right? So it's not just hoping and wishing that it could get better, but it's doing the hard work of making it better in this generation, which requires, and this is why we went through the emotional fluency part, it requires being able to really be with the grief and the reality of injustice, oppression, racism, exploitation, all of the indoctrination that we've received, learning to know what the lies that we've been told are, and then being able to untell those lies to ourselves first, right? Because we have to understand where we're coming from, what's going on here. But then one of the fun things that I've just been working on this section in my book around relearning the world with our children. And when they come to us with a question, what do we tell them? Like, do we tell them the thing that we were told? Do we tell them the common thing that gets told? Or do we really sit with, maybe I don't know the answer to that question? Or, you know what? The truth here is that things aren't fair, you know? And why aren't they fair? How does this work? What could we do differently? How could we understand this differently? So we have so many opportunities, as you know, if you have children around you at all, the questions are endless, you know, never ending opportunities to learn and relearn, and to learn beside our children as they're understanding their world, and to get good at noticing those opportunities for, hey, here's a place where I can help them really tap into emotional fluency, or here's a place where I can help them understand and see the possible path forward, or I can elevate cooperation and collaboration in this moment. And often it means we have to slow down a little bit. Often it means we have to pause the business as usual, or the grind, or the moving forward with the deadlines and the due dates. So we have to just say, okay, I'm going to look at this with you. So you're not going to hit it every time, right? Sometimes you have to just keep going. But the more and more we can do that with our children, and do that for ourselves, the more we give them the tools that they'll need to move forward into a new way. So I'm seeing wonder, I'm seeing new systems, meaningful culture, vulnerability. Yeah, and we have to pay real attention to do this. Right? It's really like noticing, hey, every single moment in my kid's life is a learning moment. Every single one. So I've got a chance here every time. And like I said, you might miss some of them, but the more you pay attention, the more you can meet those moments. Yeah, I like this, what Elsa said here. So to help them take in the idea that all the material promises of advertisements and what they see that we have now in our way of life is not the way of the future. This is really huge. This is really huge because you're not the only influence in your children's life. They're being influenced by every single thing they interact with. And more now, the media and all of the ways in which corporate culture kind of seeps in from every corner of our lives and of our kids' lives, they're getting some really, really strong messages. And so for us to do our work as countercultural or cultural transformation parents, new paradigm parents, we've got to really be paying attention and help them look with a critical eye, and help them understand, oh yeah, that's interesting, but it's not true. So let's dissect that and look at that and work with that. And there's really a skill, there's an art to that, so that you don't put yourself in between corporate culture and the kids in a battling sort of way. So you can go sit beside them and look at it and empower them to understand it for themselves instead of telling them, oh, that's not right. Because it's very seductive, corporate culture. And so you have to be really careful not to kind of make an enemy of yourself in that whole scenario. Anyways, there's so much here. This is, we can just only scratch the surface at this point in time with the amount of time that we have here. But clearly, you all have a lot in your toolbox, a lot of awareness. And it's just a matter of like bringing it and committing to it. Like the poem says, to say it when you rise, to say it when you go to sleep, to remind your children, to breathe it with every part of your being, and to know that you actually can do this. You are actually right now here on the planet for this reason. And that these kids need you to be holding that commitment and carrying this and pulling your tools out of that toolbox as often as you possibly can muster. So, because we are where we are time-wise, I'm going to move us right into the last portion of the spiral. I'm going to bring us into growing forth, because this whole conversation is only as valuable as the nuggets that you're going to bring home to your kids. It's only as valuable as what you weave into your parenting experience. So I'm going to give you some time in breakout groups, and I believe you're going back to the same group that you were in last time, to talk about something that you are taking from this experience today that you're going to weave into your parenting experience. You can see in the chat, share how you intend to weave something from today's session into your daily life as a parent, and what effect you feel and hope that it might have. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I hope you had a good time connecting with each other and have some inspiration to move forward into your lives with. I just want to hear from two people briefly, because we're getting close to the top of the hour. Other people can put in chat, was there something particular that you're going to weave into your parenting life? Go ahead and speak up if you have something you want to share from your breakout time. Donna, yes.
Hi, as a grandparent,
Yeah.
I want to say that it's so exciting for me to witness younger people and their children being talked to about what's going on with the earth and about fresh air and fresh water and just all of that. I love the idea of transformational parenting. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I know you probably all enjoyed connecting with each other and want to stay connected. So we're going to actually keep the room open for a few minutes after the top of the hour. So if anybody wants to exchange information or just be able to have that moment to connect, we can do that after we close. And so I want to let you know that, of course, we were able to do some stuff here today. We were able to share some ideas, to connect in some ways, but in 2 hours, with such an outrageously huge topic of parenting and global crisis, we could only scratch the surface. There's so much more to do, and the work is ongoing work, and it's deep work that we can do together. And so I want to really be clear to invite you to participate in deeper work together with other parents. I'll be facilitating a 12-week program starting at the end of January and going all the way through March. It's going to have 6 sessions. So it's every other week. And we're going to be working with content from the books that I've been writing. So there'll be material to read and take in that is along the lines of what we've talked about today, but much more extensive. And then in the sessions, we're going to be doing practices that are kind of in the style of the Work That Reconnects, but they're all practices that I've cultivated specifically for parents. So we'll be able to do them and do deeper practices than we were able to do today, moving through the spiral in 6 weeks, so that we have an opening and a closing, and then we have our 4 weeks of moving through the spiral. It will be, how many people will you cap the class at? So it will be 24 people or less. So it will be an opportunity to actually connect with other people over a period of time and develop some cohesion and some connection. It will be more intimate and richer than what we were able to manage today. So Frida put the link for the event page in the chat, and I really encourage you to reach out to me if you have any questions or concerns or curiosities at all about how that will be held. I'm really excited. We have a few people already gathering for that group, and I'm really excited to see who the other parents are that will gather for it and what we'll learn together and how we'll deepen our new paradigm parenting experience together. So as we close, I want to thank you deeply from the bottom of my heart for your time and your energy here today, and for your love and your dedication to your own children and to this generation and to coming generations of those yet to be. And I will send you off with a blessing, and I want to invite you each to bless each other. So I'll share a blessing with you, and then you can share a one word or a brief blessing for all of the other parents in this group and the other grandparents in the chat. You can just kind of send that out there. So I send you out into the world with renewed vision, hope, and inspiration, and the ability to really lean into being with your children at this exciting, pivotal, challenging, brilliant moment on planet Earth. May resilient life flow through you and into them in a way that provides thriving life for all beings. So take that in and send out your blessings. You can send messages in the chat there. And Frida's going to close, and then we'll keep the room open for a little bit if anybody wants to exchange information or connect with each other or connect with us.
Thank you for joining us today. So to learn more about the Work That Reconnects Network's webinars and conversation cafes series, please visit our website at workthatreconnects.org. And we will be keeping this room open for just a few minutes. Thank you all.